Sourdough English muffins are so easy to make. The recipe for the dough is actually super simple. It just has a little extra honey in it, and I'm going to show you exactly how to make them. They don't go in your oven. You cook them on your cooktop, and look at how fluffy, these big air pockets. Oh, all of the goodness is down in the description below. Let's make a batch of them together. To make the dough, you're going to need 100 grams of active sourdough starter. So you fed it, it has risen, and now we're gonna make this dough. So a lot of times I make the English muffins when I'm also making some other batches of dough to put in the fridge, because then it's already in the fridge ready to go for the weekend. So start with your starter, then you're gonna add in 20 grams or 1 tablespoon of honey. You can use sugar or maple syrup if you want. Then add in 1 cup or 240 grams of milk. Get this mixed up first before you add your flour in. So grab your dough whisk and get the honey, the milk, and the starter incorporated really good before you put the flour in. This helps your dough to come together better, and you'll have less lumps and it won't be as hard for you to get it mixed up. The Danish dough whisk is my favorite tool to use for when I'm mixing up the dough. It really does such a good job, and it's not like a traditional whisk where everything gets stuck in the middle. Then we're gonna add in our flour, and this is 360 grams of flour. Take your bowl off your scale, get your Danish dough whisk, and mix away. It doesn't take very long for the dough to come together. It's actually pretty easy to do by hand. And side note, you'll see that I did not add any salt yet. You want all of these ingredients to be combined together, and you want them to be able to rest together for 30 minutes before you incorporate the salt in. Now, I realized adding the salt on top of the dough, somehow that didn't make it into the video. So as soon as you get your dough all mixed together, it's all incorporated, I want you to put your bowl back on the scale, and you're gonna shake 1 heaping teaspoon or 10 grams of salt over the top of the dough. Don't mix it in yet. It just gets to sit on the top while the dough does that first resting stage. After it has had 30 minutes to rest, that salt has sat on the top, and it's gonna start to dissolve slightly into the top of the dough. Then we're going to push the salt down into the dough, and it's gonna start getting incorporated with our first stretch and fold. Here's why they call it a stretch and fold. You are going to push your hand down under the dough. You're gonna pull it up, that's how you're stretching it. Give it a wiggle, and then you're gonna fold the dough over itself. And you're gonna repeat that probably 4 or 5 times as you work your way around the bowl. Then cover the bowl, set your timer for another 30 minutes, come back, do that stretch and fold 3 more times. So you're gonna do it a total of 4 times. Here's the cool thing about the stretch and folds. After each 30 minutes, when you come back, take notice of the dough. It is incredible how the sourdough starter working its way through the dough, you doing those stretch and folds, each time you come to do it, your dough is gonna get softer, it's gonna get smoother, and that is like, it's happening right before your eyes, basically, that the sourdough starter and the gluten are developing, and it's helping the dough to be softer. Once you have finished your final stretch and fold, so that whole process takes about 2 hours, you're just popping into the kitchen every 30 minutes to like stretch and fold it. It's resting at room temperature. Then I want you to take your dough and put it in an airtight container, and this dough is gonna go into the fridge. It can stay in your fridge for up to 5 days. So sometimes I make this on Monday when I do a big baking day, and then we use it on Friday. But it just needs to stay in the fridge for at least 1 day. So give it at least a 24-hour period, but it can sit longer. When you take it out of the fridge, the dough is going to be really firm, which is good because it just makes it easier to work with. So scrape it all out of that container. Make sure that your work surface has some flour on it, because our goal is to get this whole batch of dough patted out, or as you can see, I kind of like to let gravity do some of the work, and I just let it hang as I'm kind of going around almost like you would do like a pizza, how you'd pat out a pizza. But we want all of the dough to be about 1/2 inch thick, and you want it to be really even because that's going to make your English muffins even. If half of it is like really thick and the other half is thin, it makes it really hard to cook the English muffins evenly. So just keep working with the dough. You can use a rolling pin if you need to. It's okay that you're patting it out, you're working with it, because once we get these cut out, they're actually gonna have an hour where they're gonna sit and rest at room temperature, and they're gonna be able to fluff up more. So do the work, get it patted out. I just try to keep it kind of in an oval-ish shape. It makes it easier to cut it out with the biscuit cutters. Then prep your baking sheet with just a little bit of cornmeal dusting over the top. That helps the English muffins not stick to it once we put them there. Get your 3-inch biscuit cutter and cut out your English muffins as close together as possible, because you don't really want to have a bunch of excess dough that you have to pat out again. There will be some at the end that you'll need to like re-pat out, and it seems to get a little bit more stiff and harder to work with when you do that second patting out. So work your way through this dough, getting them all cut out. Whatever dough you have left over, stretch it, squeeze it, roll it, get it back down to that 1/2 inch thickness. You really don't want them to be super thick. They don't cook as well or as evenly. So stretch it if you need to. Whatever you need to do, get it back to that 1/2 inch thickness, and you should have 11 or 12 English muffins by the time you've cut out all of the dough. Then they're on our baking sheet with that little bit of cornmeal, and we're gonna do another little dusting of cornmeal over the top of them, and then cover it with a tea towel, and it's gonna rest at room temperature for an hour before we start to bake or cook them. These don't actually go in the oven. You cook them on a stovetop, or you could use an electric skillet too. Okay, it's all been proofing, and now this is honestly the trickiest part, is you want your pan to get warm, not too warm. If it's too warm, you're gonna do this to the bottom of your English muffins. And so I always test one before I start adding them in. On our stove, the best is if it's sitting at like around 3, so it's pretty low, but whoops, you want your pan to get warmed up, because these don't go in the oven. They all just go into the pan, and this is why you want them to be pretty even as you are like patting it out, because you want them to all cook pretty evenly in there. So here's some of the ones that we did. You can see how they get toasted up. They're still pretty hot. So I was adjusting the heat just a little bit because the bottom was getting a little bit too toasted. But once you put it in the pan, you set your timer for 4 minutes, which I didn't set it right away. So I'm gonna say 3 minutes and 30 seconds. And then I'll show you what it looks like when we flip it. But make sure you put the lid on. The lid needs to be on because it's trapping all of the heat in there, it's trapping the moisture in there, and those are gonna puff up and they're gonna get nice and fluffy. Okay, did you check out my new shirt? Look at this. This is so perfect. If you're gonna get up and make English muffins, you need your wake and bake shirt on. Because that's the cool thing about this recipe, is that you have to let the dough rest overnight anyways. So get it ready a couple days ahead of time, and then you can have fresh English muffins like multiple days of the weekend, because one batch makes 11, 12, depending on like how well you were able to like pat it all out. So wake and bake club. Okay, my timer hasn't gone off yet, but I like to peek at them just to make sure that they're not getting too hot. Ooh, they're looking perfect. Okay, so peek at yours at like 2.5 minutes and turn them over if they're starting to get toasty. And then what this tells me is we need to turn our burner down just a little bit more. Nothing goes in the pan. Like you're not putting butter or oil or anything like that in the pan. It's just the sourdough cut out with a little bit of that cornmeal on it. So Don't add anything into the pan because it has to sit there for so long that it would end up like scalding your butter or oil. So only the sourdough. And if it's getting brown toasted like that before you've hit the 4-minute mark, then turn your burner down and you're gonna find this sweet spot. I feel like every pan has its own sweet spot, but ours, the longer that these pans are on the stove, it's like they just continue to conduct more and more heat. So as I get further into the batch, I end up having to like turn the temperature down just a little bit more. And I forgot to set my timer again, so I'm gonna set it for 2 minutes and then we'll check it again. A lot of times once you flip it over, you'll get like some moisture built up in there. That's really good. That's gonna help the sourdough to like fluff up even more. But let's take a peek at them and see. Okay, they're just starting to get toasty. If you're feeling concerned, like, are they cooked all the way through? You can put like a thermometer in there, but typically the minute this side is toasty and that side starts to get toasty, that's when they're done. So we're gonna pull them off and let them rest over here on our cooling rack. Okay, let's cut this baby open. You can see all the goodness. Look at all those air pockets, nice and fluffy. Okay, there's the English muffins. Have so much fun baking them. We're glad that you could be here in the kitchen with us. Lots more goodness to come. Leave all your comments below. You help us create more videos when you ask questions. So, ooh, I gotta go flip the last batch. Have fun baking.